so much, everyone, for joining us. This is day 4 of Sales and Pre-Sales Mastery series. And we are really excited to have you all here. Today, we are going to talk about POCs and POVs and what they are and how they help sales teams and how you all can get started on this. Again, as I mentioned, today's day 4. So far, we have talked about the basics of sales, pre-sales, how different roles fit into these areas. Then we talked about lead generation and qualification. We also talked about discovery and requirements with Kunal. And today we are going to talk about POCs, POVs, and how they help sales teams. And then we have 3 more sessions coming your way, which kind of wraps up the entire pre-sale cycle. So, as some of you know me, I'm Piyusha. I'm Solution Architect at Implementology. I am also a Salesforce MVP and have been working on the pre-sale side for quite a while now. And today we are going to talk about what are POCs, POVs, why they matter in sales, like literally everything around that. And then why do we need internal POCs, or who's responsible for what, and some challenges and best practices when you're working on your POCs. So let's get started with the very simple thing. What is a POC? And this is a question a lot of people are normally curious about, because POCs are very common for the consultancies, but not so common for customers. Because if you're working as a salesperson, admin, or developer on the customer side, you might not have worked with POCs more often, because this is something which the consulting partners use to actually build their own technical capabilities. So every time something, for example, Agentforce was launched last year at Dreamforce. It was a new product. No one was aware of like what it is, how it works. And so all of these consulting partners, they started working on developing their own POCs. And what that means is that they essentially wanted to build their team's technical capabilities. They wanted to test like what the product is and how it works, so that they can understand and they can guide their customers in a better way. So essentially, a POC is a small-scale project designed to test the technical feasibility of an idea or a product or a technology or approach. As the name suggests, it's a proof of concept that this thing, it works, right? There are 2 major categories for POC. And as a consulting partner, you might be aware of both of these. One is, and first and foremost, every technical team member at some point of time in their career might have been a part of internal learning POCs. As soon as a new product comes up, a lot of the teams get started on building these amazing POCs with fantastic use cases. With my previous employer, we had a dedicated team where we used to have everyone on board for POCs. It's not just for developers, actually. If you're thinking that, okay, this is for developers, it looks like internal learning is for developers only because they need to build it at the end of the day. But everyone from consultants, developers, QAs, architects, everyone, technical leads, everyone was involved. Project managers, everyone was involved in these POCs, so that they get a first-hand experience of what is coming their way and how they can work on it from the get-go. The second type of POC is sales enablement POCs. So these POCs can be built for newer products or for existing products, depending on how you're working. And we're going to learn more about each of these in the coming slides. So let's talk about sales enablement POC first. These POCs normally are the ones where we want to use the industry relevant demos, which resonate with a chunk of our customers, because sometimes consulting partners operate in a certain domain or industry. So, for example, there's a consulting partner who specifically works with um, entertainment industry or maybe hospitality. So their demos will be focused more on those kind of customers. So when you're working with those clients, you come across with some basic, like some really industry specific pain points, and you want to pitch that idea to more of those customers within the same domain. So what sales team does is they analyze the patterns as to if they have sold the Salesforce solutions to maybe 10 hospitality clients and maybe 2 healthcare care clients in the last 3 months. They will primarily focus on hospitality more. The reason behind that is because they have done 10 projects there. They understand each and everything on that side. And with that knowledge, really help other clients who are going through similar situations pretty quickly. So what they then request the tech team is that, hey, can you help me build this POC, which is essentially like a demo or a demo with a nicer deck, which is focused more towards businesses that, hey, you guys are using Salesforce and this is how we can make it pretty for you and your team. And so these sales enablement POCs are really amazing for the sales team to actually get their foot in the door with the clients. Normally, in my previous company, a lot of time the internal tech team started working on a POC for their own purposes. And sometimes we'll just share it randomly with the sales team and they'll be like, wow, this is so amazing. And maybe we should get started on this. Like, we can use this to pitch that customer. And I was like, wow, it's a seamless collaboration because our team used that opportunity to learn that new product as well, but then that could again be used by the sales team. So sometimes these two POC overlaps, but a lot of the time sales enablement POCs are specifically designed for industry relevant or like a specific pain point or multiple pain point related demos, because those are then presented to the customers. As we talked about, it actually shortens the pre-sale cycle because the account executives or the sales team members, they have something to talk about today. They don't need to wait for like weeks for this product to be built by the tech team. It is readily available for them and they can get started from the get-go. It obviously doesn't cover like the entire product cycle, but it actually covers the most common and high impact use cases so that your customers feel like, okay, this is something really amazing. We can get started from here and then we can build on it. As I mentioned, the purpose is to use it in discovery, demos, pitch meetings, etc. Normally, tech team is the one who built it. Sales team helps in identifying the patterns across their deals. And then sales, pre-sales, tech team, they all sit together and identify those use cases. And then these kind of POCs are built by the tech team. Now let's talk about the internal POCs. We used an example of Agentforce earlier. Last year, when Agentforce was launched at Dreamforce, post in the chat how many of you have started exploring that on your own and have built your own POCs of sorts. Drop yes in the chat section if you have built something of your own using Agentforce and felt really good about your capabilities of executing an Agentforce related project. It could be on Trailhead, it could be on your dev org. See, there are a lot of yeses I can see. And that's how the tech team works. Within an organization, sometimes there are individuals who are very interested in, learning new things. But then there are some people who need the push to actually get there. So to prepare the teams for new technologies and for existing technologies as well, at times the company will put together a team of people who are not like fully allocated on the projects, and they'll get started on understanding the feature, kind of like exploring the use cases on their own, because there is no client, there's no one working on this. And then they, dive deeper into the product and build a POC for themselves, which kind of like essentially helps them get ahead of their peers as well. So for example, when Agentforce launched, I was one of the few SMEs for Agentforce in my previous company. And what we did was we brought a team together of consultants, solution architects, technical architects, developers, senior developers, QAs, project managers, and we came together. We learned Agentforce on our own through Trailhead, and then we started exploring the product on our own. And finally, we sat down together and we came up with a bunch of use cases for Agentforce. Out of those use cases, we finalized the one which we're going to go forward with. And we started working towards like building a foolproof POC for that product. So we were obviously not focusing our energy on building a website or something like that, because that doesn't fall under the Agentforce POC. We already had a website for one of the previous POCs we did, because sometimes we give these talks to our interns as well, so that they can, learn that particular technology while they're getting themselves ready for working on a client project. So we essentially used that website. We started working on our Agentforce use case. We got approval from the senior team members or executives in our company, so that they were kind of like acting as our client. So we got like a foolproof experience in terms of like how we can deal with the client as well. And we built that POC end to end, and that gave us confidence while we were working on client projects. A lot of the time, these POCs are used to create reusable accelerators, because sometimes, for example, I'm working with a specific client where we need to do a specific API integration, but we have done that for like 4 clients already. And I know that we'll be doing that for multiple clients moving forward. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use that code and build a reusable accelerator around it, so that the next time when that project comes in, I can use that to speed up the process. I'm still going to build them 100 hours because that's the worth of the project, but I will be saving 20 hours of my team's time on that project, which I can then use on these kind of POCs, so my team can explore new products, my team can maybe think about more accelerators and stuff like that. So identifying all of these use cases is also a part of POC, and depending on the complexity and the level of your team members, because a lot of time we don't just want early stage folks in the POCs. We want extremely experienced people, mid-level and junior folks, all in the same team, so that they can learn from each other's experiences. These also helps us in preparing playbooks and then architecture diagrams, so that we are aware of what's going to happen if we do this, what's going to happen if we do something else. So we were, in our example, experimenting with, okay, if we should create like a separate agent for separate topics, but then we realized that we can add multiple topics in the same agent, but we should not add too many instructions in the same topic, because when we were adding multiple, like way too many instructions in a same topic, Agentforce was producing rubbish results. Whereas when we were keeping like very specific to the topic instructions in the particular topic, it was producing much better results. So it kind of gives us an opportunity to experiment and figure out like how we're going to deliver this for our actual customer. Internal POCs are clearly and 100% owned by the technical team. Sales sometimes benefits it indirectly once these internal POCs are demo ready or they have like um, a nice deck around it or a playbook. But these are optional for sales team. They may or may not have use for internal POC, depending on how your company plans around it. I can see a question in chat. What is an accelerator? Well, accelerator, which helps you get to the end level faster. And a like accelerator could be a reusable piece of code because you're working with the same set of questions, customers, and you are writing almost similar types of code. So you might want to use that piece of code and build it into Accelerator so that next time when you're working with a similar set of client, you can use that instead of writing everything from scratch. An Accelerator could be a document where everything is mentioned in detail so that when you're stuck in a particular problem, you don't have to spend hours figuring a solution out for that. Somebody has already done that. So in my previous company, we had these accelerator documents everywhere for various different types of problems. Every time somebody's stuck in an issue, what they're going to then do is create a dedicated document. And in that document, they're going to talk about what the problem was, how they solved it, what the next person should be aware of. And that means if next time somebody's facing that same issue, they don't have to spend hours figuring the solution out or posting on trailhead communities or asking their friends or asking people on LinkedIn. They can simply search in our Confluence. If they can find that page, well and good. If not, they might be the first one to encounter that issue. But if they're not the first one, it kind of saves them additional hours if we have these accelerated documents. Not every time an accelerator is a code. Sometimes it is a document. Sometimes it is a video tutorial, whatever works for the team. The accelerators are essentially the things which unblocks you or saves you time for your next or upcoming implementations. Now, when to use a POC versus POV? Actually, this slide came up a bit early, or maybe I forgot to actually update the title of the slide. So please forgive me. The slide should supposed to say like the purpose and impact of sales enablement POCs and internal learning ones. Even though they are like clearly distinguished, just to reiterate, sales enablement POCs are the ones which are readily available for demos for customers. The sales team is primarily the one which uses these, and the impact is to close the deals quickly because these demos actually help them build trust with the clients. These demos help them, just win the deal quicker because they're readily available for the sales team. Internal learning POCs, as we talked about, help you build deep product expertise. And it is essentially for tech teams, and they deliver better demos and real projects. Helps you deliver better demos and real projects. Okay, so why both types are needed? Well, both types are needed because sales POCs help you win the deal, internal POCs help you deliver the deal, and together they create a really strong foundation for new products, especially around AI, Agentforce, or anything which is coming up right now. Or in case of Marketing Cloud, it could be Growth and Advanced Edition because a lot of us have not worked on Growth and Advanced Edition. But if your internal team is working on Growth and Advanced Edition, you have some people who are already experiencing that, maybe through an internal POC. And so when a project comes in, they will be ready to get started on those projects. And with these POCs, sales gets the confidence to talk about the value because they can clearly demonstrate it to their clients that, hey, this is what it is and this is how it works. This is what we can do for you. And the tech team also gets the confidence because they now know how this product works and they can then help the customers build the best solution. At the same time, as a consultant, you're also not going to overpromise when your customer asks, can Agent Force magically make me appear in the sky? You'll say no, because you know that that's not possible because you've already done that. Now, let's talk about POV because this was a word which we used earlier. What is a POV? Well, POV is a bit different than POC because it's not just about learning a new product or building a demo. POVs normally are business focused. They focus on business value. They focus on evaluating the outcomes, or like, is it like worth the investment? They talk about, unlike proof of concept, they talk about how well the solution meets business goals. In the POC, we talk about technical feasibility most of the time, whereas in POV, we talk about business goals and how the solution actually, helps us achieve those goals faster. It also helps the decision makers assess like a solution's impact and benefits before they can commit to that particular product. For example, now a lot of the companies are adopting Agent Force. You might have worked with a client on Agent Force and have seen results as to they might be able to save 25% of their time in customer cases or new customer cases, because human doesn't have to interact with those people and agent is taking care of those problems. And so you can then use that as a POV, because a POV can be a white paper, a POV can be case study, a POV can be a demo, not necessarily, but it generally shows like defined KPIs, ROIs, cost saving, efficiency improvement, like some sort of key metrics. It also talks about like measuring the solution's impact against these metrics. It talks about how that data is going to deliver sufficient value so that the client can move forward with a full-scale implementation. It talks about, all of these things. And the most important thing, when you need to use POV versus POC, because POC can be used early in the stages. POV is more detailed. It is normally used with readily available products versus new products. And it is mostly used when the products have proven good return on investments, because then only you can talk about this is how we're going to do it for you and this is what you can save by doing this. Yes, POVs can be given to customers depending on the type of the POCs. Sometimes POVs are white papers and you share them with the entire industry, not necessarily just with like one customer. To answer Raghavendran's question, another question you had was, does POV is for sales or pre-sales? Again, POV is more on the pre-sale stage. POC is more for the sales stage because then they're trying to get the foot in the door. POVs are where most of the people, by that time, they're like, okay, going with two minds, these are the two people I might go with, and I just need to figure out like if this is really going to give me full value of my dollar. There are some key differences between POV and POC, and before we talk about that, let's talk about like why these matters in pre-sales. POCs and POVs normally helps build the sales team and technical team a level of confidence with their customers, because They have tested the products, they can see the ROI, they are not going into the product with blind eye. They already have tested these products by building these POCs and POVs. Because you know how things are going to work, you obviously don't have to Google every question or go to Salesforce help documents for every question you get from your customer. So essentially, it accelerates your team as well. In terms of your customer, it normally accelerates the decision making because they can see the impact firsthand, and it helps you stand out from your competitor because not every company uses POCs and POVs to win more deals. A lot of the time, for newer products specifically, it actually is really important. And sometimes these POCs or POVs are exactly what your customers are looking for. So as soon as they go through these documents or these demos, they're like, okay, this is something which we were looking for, and that's it, we got it. So we're going to go forward with this. Now let's talk about the role of sales team. So sales team essentially helps the tech team figure out or identify the common customer pain points, which they have been seeing across their customers. So they might have sold certain number of deals, and they might be able to figure out like what the majority of the customers are looking for. Excuse me for a second. Sorry, my son is here and I need to lock the door. Sorry about that. The sales team also helps qualify whether POC or POE is needed because they know what stage the customer is at and what they're looking for. So tech team normally doesn't necessarily have to, think about, okay, should we go with POC or POE? It defines success criteria with customers because they know, like especially POEs, because they know that this is what a previous customer has implemented on their org. And if we do this as well, we will be able to save so much time, or we might be able to get so much ROI. It normally ensures like business users are engaged, because if they're only having a superficial conversation, they're not going to go deep into like learning more about the POEs and stuff like that, because POE is a highly detailed document where you can actually see like how the solution worked in delivering certain KPIs. And lastly, it helps track the impact on pipeline and deal velocity. Without POCs and POVs, when you're having a conversation with your customers, you might have 10 conversations and you'll be able to like win maybe one or two, because you're not able to build trust with your customers directly, as you can only like make promises, but there's nothing tangible which they can see. When you go with these demos, that shows a level of preparedness on your behalf. And the customer immediately goes like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, and they feel comfortable working with those clients, like those consultants. Now, what is tech team's responsibility? Well, tech team essentially owns the entire execution of the POV. They convert like all the pain points received from the sales team into a technical scope. They design the solution. They build these POC, POV environments, relevant documents. They run demos, enablements, walkthroughs. When the sales team is working with a client, technical team is the one who runs these demos, not the sales team 9 out of 10 times. Some companies do have like some weird situations, so I'm not commenting on that, but 9 out of 10 times, technical team actually runs these demos, enablements, everything. It also helps the tech team quickly identify like the level of efforts needed for a project, because for a new product, it becomes very challenging for you to analyze like how much effort you need to build that particular thing. because you've never done that. If you've already done that, even in a POC, you'll be able to identify how many hours you need for the dev to build this flow or for this Apex class or whatever, and you'll be able to estimate that properly. And lastly, technical team helps sales team in customer presentation. Now, the difference between POC and POV, and this is like really critical because people often get confused between these two and they feel like, okay, I don't know which way to go for. POC is, again, centered around determining the technical feasibility of an idea. So when you're trying to figure out if this product can work this way or not, can we build this particular thing, this is the where you need to go. If you need to focus on, will this deliver value to our business? And this is the kind of question which normally comes from your client. POV is something which you need to focus on. You try to build something and then you try to show them the value that this is how you can save money or this is how you can reach your goal faster. In terms of timelines and scope, POC normally have shorter timelines. The reason behind that is you are testing like one or two issues. Sometimes they might be big, but 9 out of 10 times they are small because you're only focusing on one feature. You are not going to go ahead and build POC for entire sales and service cloud implementation because that has already been tested. You might go ahead and create a POC for Agentforce Vibes because that is a new product announcement and you might want to explore that before start experimenting with that, right? So POCs are normally shorter in duration and have more like limited scope, not more limited scope. They have limited scope. POVs, on the other hand, they covers a broader scope because they want to they need to cover data analysis. They also need to cover like performance evaluation. They sometimes need to assess the business impacts as well to validate if the solution which the client is investing in is worth it or not. So they normally have like longer timelines. POC can be built in a week, but POVs normally take weeks to build that. And that's why people prefer if they can actually build those in advance rather than when they're having conversation with the customer. The outcomes for both of these are obviously very different. For POCs, they typically result in a technical prototype. It could be an experimental model that essentially like demonstrate that the functionality is working or this is how the functionality works. The outcome for POV is to validate the business benefit. It could be cost saving, it could be increased efficiency, it could be higher revenue, whatever the customer is looking for and whatever the solution you're offering delivers, you need to talk about that outcome. Lastly, the target audience, and this is also very important because when you're building any document, any presentation, you want to focus that on the audience you have. The target audience for POC is normally technical teams, developers, engineers, sometimes like your internal leadership team. For POV, it's aimed at your stakeholders, decision makers, executives, product owners, product leaders, and they all need to understand whether the solution aligns with their business goals or justifies the investment. There are a multitude of things we can talk about these, but these are the main differences between these two. See, I can see a few questions there. Will we mention timeline and resources needed in POVs? POVs normally go anyway up to 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the content. Sometimes they can be like 2 to 3 weeks, but normally they're around 3-week mark. You might want to, depending on your customer and how you're delivering things, you might want to add like a tangible document which they can go and reference back to as to what exactly are they being offered, like what are the outcomes of the solution. This is a solution which the consultancy will be delivering. This is how it is going to impact their business in terms of the investment versus what they're getting as the output. So you need to have a detailed case study of sorts. You need to have like a detailed explanation of their KPIs versus ROIs and all of those things. Is there a POC of custom app in SFMC? What to include and what to left in? This is a very specific question. For a POC, it totally depends on what you want to explore and how you want to do it. So you can pick and choose because these are not customer driven normally, they're more internal team driven. If you are building a sales enablement POC, your sales team might be the better person to answer this question. And moving on to the next bit. So there are some common mistakes which I want to highlight. A lot of time for POCs specifically, people tend to overbuild. POCs normally are focused on 2-3 pain points or maybe a specific pain point. And if you're overbuilding it and trying to make it like a complex solution, it is going to consume more number of hours, which you can essentially use on working on a customer project, because the hours you're spending on POC, especially the internal POCs, they're non-billable hours. And if the company starts focusing more on building these POCs, they're going to lose money rather than actually make money. A lot of the time, they ignore the value story. Tech teams, a lot of time I've seen this, are more driven as to, hey, you know what? This is fun. Let's build it. And they ignore the use case of this primarily. And in that case, like, you keep on building something which is not actually producing the result that you should have. Sometimes they are too feature focused, not outcome focused. And this is really important for POVs, because when tech team builds these, they are more focused on features, not outcomes. So a lot of times sales team needs to be involved in POVs to the extent that they can actually help validate the outcomes versus features. The biggest mistake which I've seen a lot of the companies do is no defined owner. If you don't have a defined owner, the onus falls on no one. And because this is not a client project, nobody even cares. And this is what I've seen multiple times, because for a client project manager is responsible. Scrum master is responsible for things. Project manager is responsible one thing. Program manager is responsible something. So everyone is after somebody else, and people are like so focused on timeline and schedule and budget and everything. Whereas for internal projects, a lot of time I've seen that people do not define the owners, and then those projects, even though they were started at certain point of time, because of the lack of owner, nobody cares, and people are just like, okay, I have more important work than working on this POC, and it gets derailed. Missing timeline expectation. If you don't set a timeline for your project, something which you can do within a week might take 4 or 5 weeks because you don't have a certain timeline and you are just working and nobody cares. A lot of time POCs do not have no structural internal reviews, which means like people can build anything they want. You don't want to do that because you want to equip your team to work on these newer technologies, but at the same time, you also want to think about what they're doing is actually practically useful. So having a team or a structure in place for internal review is really important. And lastly, not setting clear success criteria, as I mentioned on the second point, ignoring value story. If you don't have a success criteria, you might end up building something which you don't even need. Now, there are some best practices which you should focus on. Keep the scope narrow for POCs specifically. try to keep it within 2 to 3 key use cases only. Do not try to expand it to eternity. Try to align your KPIs that matter to your customer for both POCs and POEs, because if you're not aligning the KPIs, you might build something for your internal team and your team is using, and you can show that as a POE as well. So try to align the top KPIs with your POCs and POEs. Also, when you're building POCs, my recommendation always is to think about reusable templates and accelerators, because if I'm building a POC, I'm investing hundreds of hours of my team on something which is of no use. If I'm using those hours wisely, I might build something which can then help my customers get to that next level quicker, and I can save some money at the same time. So think about these reusable templates and accelerators while building POCs and POEs. Also document as is versus to be. We normally do this when we are discovering with our client, doing the discovery with our clients. We document as is and then we document to be. A lot of time I've seen with POCs and POEs, people don't do that. Having this document actually helps you when you are actually working with your client on a real project, because then you have something to reference back to. Also, making the final presentation business friendly is super important, because if you're making the presentation business friendly, they'll be able to understand everything. But if you're stuffing it with technical jargons, the business team members might not be able to understand everything which you're trying to portray through that presentation or through that POC. Also, POCs, every time when you're building those, plan for the next steps. What I mean by that, for example, I have built a Agentforce POC with my team. I've built the very first agent. That's it. Can I just like scrap that project and move ahead? No, the right way to move forward is I can focus on iteration of that project, addition of a new launch, something like that. So I have something in the pipeline every time and I'm building on top of it, because that's how I'm going to work with a customer. And always make sure that your POCs and POVs end with a high impact demo scenario, because demos are clients' favorites and they always love seeing the impact in real life versus just in talks. Now, once again, to read when to use a POC versus POV. A customer is unsure about the solution will work, go for POC, because POC can directly show them whether the solution will work or not. If you need to test for API integration feasibility, POC is the way to go. If your customer wants to see real value with real data, POV, because that can actually show the impact it's making. If customer needs a business justification, POV again. For a new product with low customer awareness, you can do internal POC as well as you can build POVs depending on how you are executing it, because both of these actually help you build competitive situation. As I mentioned, a lot of the time, these consultancies don't have people working on POCs and POVs. And that's why if you are doing this, the clients will be super happy. So these are the basics I have from my end, and that's it. If we have any questions around POC and POV, you can drop them in the chat section, and I would be happy to answer those questions.
Thanks, Piyusha. So we do have many questions. Thanks to Kunal and Shreya for answering the questions. There are quite a few questions about the POV. Is it for the sales or the pre-sales, and then is that given to the customer? More on lines with more clarity. If you can share more details about the difference between the two, or any other detail.
So as I mentioned before, POCs are normally used as at the early sales stages, or like during the sales process. POVs are normally used during the pre-sales process. I have got on at length to explain the difference between these two, so I'm not going to go through the differences once again. But POCs are more for sales cycle, and POVs are for pre-sales cycle, as they have like different target audiences and different interests from people. With POCs, you try to build trust with them from the get-go. From POVs, they want to see the value you're delivering through the solution you're building. So that's it.
And there's another question. How do you customize a POV for different stakeholders? The CFOs, CMOs, CIO, and the end users.
So normally the POVs are not necessarily for end user, but more for the stakeholders or product owners, because POVs are built with a very clear aspect in mind, that how that solution is going to give enough value of it, like return on investment versus like what I'm doing or against my business goals. So when you are working on POVs, you always think about your stakeholders as CIOs, CEOs, CFOs, because they want to see not only the solution working, but they have a very clear question as to what's the ROI? What's the impact this is making? And so POVs are always circled around this question. Whereas POCs, they are more like, okay, this is something which you're looking for, and this is what we can do for you. We don't talk too much about ROI. We don't talk not too much at all about ROI or anything like that in POCs, because they're more demo focused. They're focused on just sharing, like, this is a pain point you have, and this is how we can solve it.
Thanks, Piyusha. Kunal and Shreya, please feel free to add your thoughts for any of the questions, not just this one. And there's another one, Piyusha, may not be done this during this session, but if we have any sample doc of POV, just to get an understanding of how it is structured, what elements it contains. If any of you have a sample doc, then can we share it in the next session?
I will look for it, the shareable one. I do have some which I can't share, but I will look for some shareable ones, and then I can share those documents.
Wonderful. It need not be a document with the data. It can be a skeleton, just to get an understanding of what elements it would contain.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. And I think those were the questions. Kunal and Shreya, let me know if I missed any of the questions here. I know you're actively answering the questions in the chat and the Q&A section. If anything we missed, please let us know. And the question of the day, Piyusha, I will let you ask a question to the attendees so we can pick a winner for the certification voucher.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen, and then I'll share it once again. Just give me a moment. So sorry for the delay. I actually added a question somewhere, and then they just disappeared. So I'm going to type the questions once again in the slide so that
Yeah, in the meantime, Kunal and Shreya, please, let's see if we can answer this question. Do we have a checklist for all the pre-sales activities listed somewhere as guidelines?
Okay, so Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Go on.
No, sorry, I was about to raise hand to just pick this question up. It's an interesting question. So, Hassan, see, it's actually a good question because what we should ideally do now, Kunal, Piyusha, and JB, is that for the next meeting, maybe I'll come up with a specific list as well, so that we could try to tell them that these are the kind of activities that we generally do, right, from a pre-sales standpoint. From a Obviously there are differentiating factors, as Piyush has brilliantly covered, right, from a sales versus pre-sales. How do you design a POC versus a POV? What does it all matter about, and what are the kind of activities that we should be taking care of when we are talking about the pre-sales and the sales stuff? So we do not have a predefined list, but every organization, so to speak, has their ways of dealing with when a new RFP comes into the picture, and what are the kind of activities that you need to start building on. And I think in the last meeting we did discuss about the structure, right, like who are the teams involved when a pre-sales activity comes in, or who are the sales teams, what kind of jobs and roles each one of them have. So Hassan, I assume that you were a part of those meetings. If not, one is obviously you could go through the recording that JB has shared for the previous session. And secondly, what we could do is in the next upcoming meeting, we could try to have some of these activities redefined, or maybe we can walk you through in more details as well. I hope that helps.
That's a great idea, Shreya. I'm making a note of all the things that are shared in the chat, so we can refer to those and try to include them in the upcoming sessions.
Sure, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
I
I am
think
ready to share my screen. So we can take up the first question. Who is primarily responsible for defining the business success criteria for a POC versus POE? Correct answer. Sales teams are normally responsible for defining business success criteria for POC or POE.
so.
And Neil Chelsea Martin is the first one to answer, if I'm correct. Jyotsna, maybe you can help me
I
with this.
see Gautam answered the first. It may be a different order for you. Can you please confirm?
I don't see Gautam's name here for some
Oh,
reason. For
I'm
me,
sorry. I'm looking at the Q&A section. It may be in
for
the.
me, it's Muriel, who's the first one who answered.
Yeah, I think it's Gotham.
Gautam is in Q&A actually.
Yeah.
In the chat section, it's Muriel.
Oh.
People, you have to answer in the chat section, please. Okay, JB
So,
can decide the winner actually.
yeah. So, do you have another question, Piyush, or else?
Yes, I do. Okay.
Okay,
Um,
please post the answers only in the chat. Let's not. I'm going to finish the Q&A, so we only have the chat accessible.
okay, we need a differentiator for this one actually. Because people were answering B from the previous one, and then this one also is B, so I'm not sure who the first one is.
I think we can look at the answers from 858.
Okay, so
858.
Shifali is the first one to answer.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, Shifali Tamar is the first one to answer this. And I will post another question.
This is for the people who are watching the recording who cannot attend the live session. So Shafali, congratulations on winning the voucher. Please share the email address that is associated with your certification or the Trailhead account.
and I will, because the first question was, confusing. Some people were answering in Q&A, some were answering in chat. So I'm going to post another question instead. Let me share my screen first, and then let me do the slideshow. Okay. And so this is a question. Which statement best explains how the two categories of POC work together? Awesome. C is the correct answer. And the first person to answer correctly is Bidhan Mondal. JB, are you there?
Yes, Piyusha. So the second question we thought that is for the people who are attending the recording, watching the recording.
Okay. Okay.
So we can close it for today with Shafali, and we do have 3 more sessions, people. So wish you all the good luck for the other sessions. Hope a few of you will still get the vouchers. And there's also a contest or some event run by Gilda. So I will share the link as well. Or you fill the application that she has shared, and she's giving away 111 certification vouchers. So you can be one of them. This is also another chance to win the voucher. And if you're working for a Salesforce partner, then Salesforce days are happening. You can get 50% off certification voucher. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It was until 17 itself. I'm sorry about that. So we do have 3 more sessions, and wish you all the good luck for the next ones. Thank you, Shreya, Kunal, and Piyusha, and thanks everyone for joining today's session. And we hope to see you again in the next sessions. Thank you.
Thank you all.